As high-profile Republicans carry on their war of words against President Trump, House Speaker Paul Ryan said Wednesday he wished they would, quote, settle their differences in private. But will the president's feuds with senators like Bob Corker and Jeff Flake spark a multi-party system? Caitlin Huey-Burns is a Real Clear Politics reporter and a CBSN political contributor, and she joins me now. Caitlin, great to see you.
Good to see you, too.
So Senators Flake and Corker are now both openly critical of President Trump. Neither is running again, however. Do you think that we're going to see other lawmakers who are up for re-election perhaps decide that they should maybe speak out or just bite your tongue?
I'm not holding my breath on this one. If we, as we've talked about before, if we look at Flake versus Trump as kind of the example of the Republican Party civil war, you can certainly argue that yesterday Donald Trump won that battle. What's interesting here is that Flake is speaking out because he decided that he's not running for re-election, but he had also been very critical of the president in the past. He had tried to make the case to voters, not running for re-election yet, but trying to make the case that, look, I can run as someone who is against this president rhetorically while still being a Republican. And it turned out that, according to poll numbers publicly and privately, that he wouldn't be able to really get through a Republican primary. In fact, he admitted as much, which is really striking. But the other striking thing is we've heard crickets on Capitol Hill from other Republicans who are kind of biding their time, trying to get through this tax reform legislation proposal and see if they can get something done.
You touched on this a moment ago, but what kind of uphill battle did Jeff Flake truly face in the state of Arizona?
Certainly. Well, he was already facing a primary challenge in the form of Kelly Ward, and there were a lot of Republicans concerned that he was polling much lower than she was, and they were concerned that she wouldn't be a good general election candidate. Arizona, of course, is a red state, but it's been increasingly changing and becoming more diverse, and Democrats have tried to focus their attention there to hope to win. But Flake's exit, actually, I think gives Republicans more of a chance of being successful in Arizona. I think this gives Republicans a chance to recruit a viable candidate that has ties to both the establishment and perhaps some of the more Trumpian wings of the party to get through that primary. So folks I've been talking to are looking at this as a positive sign, but we'll see.
Establishment types?
Establishment types, in a way, a positive sign, just because Flake was not looking to survive, looking like he was going to survive that election.
But, now, so what does this mean there for the political landscape in Arizona with Kelly Ward? I mean, there's this challenger, right? And now there's this environment where you've seen Alabama, now we've seen, Arizona, what's been going on.
Exactly.
Is there momentum here for someone like a Kelly Ward, perhaps?
Well, certainly her allies were claiming really quickly after Flake's announced departure, impending departure, that they were excited that this meant that they had won. But it's the primary there, interestingly enough, is not until August. So that gives other Republicans a chance to really kind of test the waters and see what it's like. And so I expect that there will be several more candidates getting into this race.
Let's talk about this. Late Tuesday, several senators blocked a rule allowing Americans to band together for class action lawsuits against banks. Now, is that perhaps a sign that Republicans are not as out of step with each other as perhaps maybe these public squabbles would indicate?
This was a really interesting vote because Donald Trump ran as kind of the guy for the little guy, right? Taking it to the man, so to speak. And that resonated with a lot of working class folks. This kind of legislation is pretty in tune with conventional Republican conservatism. And so you saw people like Elizabeth Warren really fighting back. And it's just interesting that this is not really a natural constituency for Donald Trump. And so they've kind of papered over that, kind of have walked right over that. But interestingly enough, he does have lots of people in his cabinet that are not kind of in line with that either. Steve Mnuchin being one of them as Treasury Secretary. But I think this was a really big vote this week.
All right. So much to watch. As always, Caitlin Huey-Burns, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks.